How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to your favorite weekly horoscope, this time for November 1st through November 7th of 2021. My name is Cam White, and thank you so much for being here with me this week. I'm super excited to talk about everything we have going on this week. We have quite a big week. New moon in Scorpio opposite Uranus. Mercury leaves shadow. Then Mercury goes into Scorpio. And we have Venus going into Capricorn, which, sure, she's not going to be in shadow yet, but that is kind of kicking off the whole Venus retrograde thing. Anyway, before we start talking about this week's horoscope, I have two announcements real quick to make. The first one is next week, I'm going to be posting my year ahead horoscopes. So my 2022 year ahead horoscopes for each zodiac sign is going to be posted next week. If you have my notifications on, which hopefully you do, you're going to be getting 12 notifications in a row. So I'm going to spam you. Sorry if that annoys you, but it's just going to be once. I hope you can forgive me. Please forgive me. Second thing is you probably noticed that last week my audio quality sounded super crappy compared to this week, and my audio this week sounds phenomenal, right? Well, it's true. I got a new microphone, and the only reason I was able to get that was because I have supporters over on my Patreon. So if you see a patron in the comments, you should thank them because they're the reason why you now have a higher quality of audio for all of my weekly horoscopes and all my free content we're putting out on YouTube. So anyway, if you want to support my channel, consider becoming a patron over at my Patreon. I have monthly horoscopes as well as ad-free content and early release content and extra content too that I put there as a bonus. So consider doing that if you haven't already. Let's go ahead and start talking about this week though. Like I said, new moon in Scorpio, Mercury leaving shadow, Mercury entering Scorpio, Venus entering Capricorn. The energy really changes here. And one of the first things I wanted to say too is Mercury's leaving shadow, right? Mercury entered shadow at the beginning of September. So September, Mercury was all through shadow, right? Then at the end of September, Mercury stationed retrograde. We had the Mercury retrograde all of October, essentially, right? Then Mercury stationed direct. And it's not even going to be until we get to the beginning of November that Mercury finally leaves that same part of the sky, right? So that's just, again, like 2 months really focused on the same area of the sky. So we're finally going to be moving forward for that. But anyway, we start this week off with the moon applying to a square with Venus on Monday before the moon actually ingresses into Libra. So on Monday on the 1st, the moon's going to be in Virgo, right? Our feelings, our emotions, we're going to want to, be nitpicky. We're going to want to be orderly and neat and tidy and wanting to change, wanting to adapt. Venus in Sagittarius, though, just wants to have fun. Venus in Sagittarius just wants freedom. Venus in Sagittarius just wants to explore, right? And I think the moon in Virgo squaring Venus in Sagittarius is like, you can't bring everything with you on a trip, on a journey. Like, it's super funny for all the people that live in Red Rock or that live in Vegas or that live in California and come out to Vegas here at Red Rocks. If you've ever been hiking out in Red Rocks, can you do a crazy hike? Yeah, but it's really not that crazy. Like I don't even go out there with a bottle of water sometimes. I'm just, I'll just end up walking. But some people, like it's super funny in Red Rocks, you'll see people with like the hiking backpack and the sticks, and they're doing like Icebox Canyon or something, and you could tell that they're not like climbing any rock or anything crazy like that. What I'm trying to say here is like you don't like Moon and Virgo squaring Venus and Sagittarius is like you don't need to be over prepared for every little journey. Moon and Virgo is like, the moon is like our necessities, right? What's going to make us feel comfortable. And the moon in Virgo is like, it's like, have you ever been hiking with those people? Like, we have to have snacks, we have to have water, we have to have sunscreen, we have to have, this, we have to have that. And it's like, shut up. Like this is not the point of hiking. You're just supposed to go. I'm sorry. I'm a Sag rising. I just walk out into the wilderness. But as the moon's in Virgo squaring Venus and Sag, you having to be comfortable with every little tiny thing is going to ruin the trip. Venus and Sag is like, hey, how about instead of caring about every little thing that we probably won't need, how about we just go and have fun? That's the whole thing with Monday. And as the moon's in Virgo squaring Venus and Sagittarius, you don't have to bring everything with you. It's just a small hike. It's just a small journey. Just let go of the control, let go of your, get out of your comfort zone and just kind of go. And on Monday is that moon's in Virgo where we're wanting to be orderly, we're wanting to be picky, get out of your head, just have some fun. Then the moon will later on move into Libra. So again, as the moon then moves into Libra, this is much more about like, hey, how do we kind of balance out the energy? Notice that the moon is starting to get, what is this phase called? Oh gosh, the dark moon phase? That doesn't sound right for some reason. It's called something, and I can't think of it. Black moon phase? That doesn't sound right either. Anyway, you ain't going to really be able to see the moon too much after this. And, there's a lot of focus going on the Scorpio stuff. when you think of the moon going towards a new moon, you think of the energy kind of receding a little bit and kind of calming down in a sense. So as the moon kind of goes into Libra, this is like, let's get a little bit comfortable, right? It's kind of like the movies, right? Before you go and sit down for 2 hours and watch a movie, you make sure you go to the bathroom, make sure you get your popcorn, make sure, you turn off your messages on your phone or whatever. I think on Monday, as we get into Monday evening, the moon moves into Libra. This is much more about like just trying to make things more comfortable, trying to make things a little bit much more, moon in Virgo, right, is wanting to be nitpicky. Moon in Virgo going on a hike is like, I have to have this, I have to have my whistle, I have to have my compass, all of that stuff, right? Versus the moon in Libra is like, what do I need just to, get things going, just to kind of, well, Venus and Sag doesn't need anything. A moon in Sag is like, we'll forget all of their personal items and we'll just go for the adventure. Moon in Libra is like, okay, I don't need every little specific thing, but just my water and a hat and I'm fine. Moon in Libra is what's going to get you comfortable so you can kind of go with the flow of things, right? And the big thing is, as the moon goes into Libra, I really like this moon in Libra transit. It's honestly, the more I've been looking at it, the more I'm like, I kind of like this couple days this week with the moon in Libra. So let's talk about that. Because that's really just Monday, right? The moon squaring Venus, then going into Libra, things kind of chill out. But then we go into Tuesday and a few things happen. As the moon initially ingresses into Libra, that's where the moon's going to be applying to a trine with Saturn. So there's all this harmony and getting things done and being constructive and being serious. We'll talk about that. But Mercury is going to square Pluto, and I know a lot of you are like, Cameron, you never talk about Pluto. Why are you talking about Pluto now? You'll see why in a minute. But Mercury is also leaving shadow. Let's actually just bring it right up. So as we get into Tuesday, the moon's going to be, of course, going into Libra, right? The moon will be in Libra, applying to that trine with Saturn. Again, moon in Libra is about like making harmony and, getting our feelings across with relationships, trying to just create peace. And then, that's appeasing Saturn in Aquarius, where it's like, know your tribe, know your community, connect with them in that way. But the other thing on Tuesday is Mercury is going to be applying to a square with Pluto in the morning. Now, on a personal level, a big reason I don't talk about Pluto that much like this, and, it's funny, I think about making a video about this, but, not every Mercury squaring Pluto, like the absolute small amount of energy that really is going to produce is not even worth really talking about. Now, if you have Mercury as your time lord, yeah, you're probably going to feel Mercury square Pluto a little bit. But it's not really the biggest deal for everyone. Now, on a general level, Mercury in Libra squaring Pluto and Capricorn is like, it's kind of sometimes hard to hold the balance of peace under certain influences of power, right? Pluto and Capricorn, certain fear. And the reason I'm talking about this is, again, I think a lot of this Mercury I think a lot of this Pluto stuff coming up with the Venus retrograde later, I think a lot of it's just going to be a bunch of Supreme Court rulings that a lot of people are going to get really upset with. And I guarantee you, then this is why I'm bringing up this transit, as I guarantee as Mercury leaves shadow and squares Pluto, I think we're going to find out a little bit more about what's kind of going on in Supreme Court. And, I don't even remember what was going on because there's like 10 billion fucking things going on. But something was going on when Mercury stationed retrograde squaring Pluto. I don't remember what it is. If you actually remember what that was, let me know in the comments below. But I guarantee we'll see something come up of the Supreme Court stuff later on. But I'm not here to talk about that today. The third thing about Tuesday I do want to talk about, though, is Mercury's leaving shadow. So again, think about how long Mercury has been in this godforsaken part of the sky. Mercury literally entered Libra, at like the very end of August? Mercury entered shadow September 7th, I believe it was. Stationed retrograde September 27th, I think it was. Maybe 26th. I might be off 1 or 2 days on that. And then retrograded all of October, finally stationed direct, and it's then just moved through shadow, and it's just now wrapping up. And think of where Libra rules in your chart. How have you rethought that area? What have you reconsidered about your life in that area since late August, beginning of September? A lot has changed in that area, right? And the whole point of Mercury leaving shadow is we can finally wrap it up, move on with your life. Think about other things, right? Mercury rules our thoughts, what we're communicating about, what our mind is on, right? So Mercury leaves shadow, move on. That's the biggest thing. Don't get wrapped up in the past. Don't stay there. Don't be like, oh, this and this and that. Like finally as Mercury, well, for example, like let's say if maybe Mercury entered shadow and you bought a new phone, but then Mercury stationed retrograde and you broke that phone. This is like, finally you're getting used to having your new phone. We can finally move on past the delays and everything that caused. But we're dealing with that also with squaring Pluto, right? So it might be a little bit frustrating. There might be a little bit of tension there trying to make everything work out the way that you want it to, right? Mercury in Libra is trying to keep the peace, trying to communicate the peace. But again, yeah, on Tuesday, the moon's going to be in Libra, making that trine to Saturn. So a lot of things are, really working out. I really like that. Which leaves us to Wednesday, right? And what I really like about Wednesday, well, there's a lot I actually really like about Wednesday. But one of the main things is, like, again, Mercury's leaving shadow. And I can't emphasize this enough. There's such a difference with retrogrades, regardless if it's Saturn, Jupiter, Mercury, Venus, whatever. There's such a difference in retrogrades when a planet stations retrograde in a sign and then stations direct in another sign, because there's like two phases to it. There's like the sense of relief versus like when a planet stations retrograde super duper late in one sign, it then goes retrograde and doesn't even go back into another. And it's just in one sign forever. Like Mercury usually only transits a sign for 3 weeks, and it's been in Libra for 8, almost 9 weeks, maybe 10 weeks. So that's almost double, triple the time in one sign. That's quite a long time. So as we wake up into Wednesday morning, having Mercury out of shadow, like, it's going to feel really refreshing. And I would assume, especially once Mercury goes into Scorpio, which we'll talk about that, but I'm assuming just like as Mercury gets out of shadow, waking up on Wednesday morning will just feel a certain type of way in general. But the other awesome things about Wednesday is we're going to be having the moon make a trine to Jupiter and conjoin Mercury pretty much all day. And then immediately after the moon makes a trine to Jupiter and conjoins Mercury, it then sextiles Venus. Then the moon enters Scorpio and conjoins Mars. Wednesday's like honestly 10 different days, in my opinion. The absolute emotional roller coaster we get to experience on Wednesday is going to be, honestly, I'm kind of looking forward to it. I like feeling things sometimes, just to feel something, just to feel a little alive. But I did want to go over this with you because this is kind of insane. The more I looked at this, the moon's going to be applying Jupiter all Wednesday morning, right? Moon's in Libra. We're wanting to have the nice relationships, create the harmony, create the peace. That's what our emotions need. We just need things to just be peaceful at the moment. And it's trining Jupiter and Aquarius. There's all of this integration that's going on. There's all of this hope. It's all air stuff, right? It's like, we're thinking the right things. We're seeing things in the right perspective. That's a funny way to say that. A lot of people are going to get mad at me saying that. But as the moon shines Jupiter, right, there is this sense of mutual understanding on an intellectual level. And then as the moon conjoins Mercury in Libra, this is kind of like, again, like speaking that message, right? The moon deals with things like empathy and sympathy and, relating to people and getting close to people, right? And Mercury is the messenger, and it's now out of shadow. And I think the moon conjoining Mercury is like, if there's been something that you've been needing to say, I think this is going to be the time to say it. Mercury is retrograded in Libra. For a lot of people, this has been about relationships. For a lot of people, this has been about, a miscommunication with a specific person. And I think this is when this all kind of gets wrapped up, right? Like Mercury's now out of shadow, now moving in fresh territory, but Mercury is still in Libra. So it's still trying to, keep the peace and keep things orderly. But now the moon is there. The moon's saying, hey, this is how you feel. You should express how you feel. And I think as the moon's trining Jupiter before that, there is this sense of like, hey, look at the big picture here, see the opportunity that this is to, reach out. And then the moon will conjoin Mercury, where there's this kind of sense of really relating, whereas there's this sense of really trying to, again, like build a bridge. But then the moon will go into Scorpio on Wednesday night and immediately come up to this conjunction with Mars. So the difference of the moon in Libra conjoining Mercury to then conjoining Mars in Scorpio is like a literal day and night difference. Wednesday morning comparative to Wednesday night is going, I'm just so interested. Because I know a lot of you guys actually come back and watch this weekly horoscope. Come back on Wednesday night, Thursday morning. Let me know what happened or the difference between Wednesday morning and Wednesday night. But as the moon goes into Scorpio, right, the moon's going into its sign of fall. The moon doesn't like to be in Scorpio. The moon is about our emotions, right? What is of necessity, what we have to have, what's going to make us feel comfortable, right? And when you have that planet in the sign that it hates the most, that it feels the most uncomfortable in, you could probably guess how you might feel. And that's going to feel maybe uncomfortable, maybe a little bit spooked, maybe a little bit scared. It is spooky season. But, as the moon goes into Scorpio and it goes into, its sign of, this isn't a detriment, my bad, I misspoke there earlier. The moon is going into its sign of fall, not detriment. But nonetheless, the moon wants to feel like safe and secured. In Scorpio, it's like rage and like intensity. And, the way I've been kind of thinking about the difference between like Mars and Scorpio, or like Cancer, and just differentiating the two, has been like the moon in Cancer is so much like a pool of water, right? It's a controlled, it's safe, it's comfortable. Sometimes you just need to get wet, versus Scorpio like reminds me of the sea. Like, it's super funny how in 2021 and in the 2000s we relate Scorpios to like emo and goth and stuff like that. Well, I know I say that a lot, and I know a lot of you hate me for that. But anyway, if I think Scorpio, all before like the 2000s, like going into like the 16th century, had to have been like salt hardened like sea pirates. Like Mars and Scorpio, right? There was nothing like manlier or more intense than like going out to sea and like robbing people and stuff like that. Why I'm bringing this up is sometimes I think of Scorpio. Actually, I might have said this on my weekly horoscope last week, but I'm going to repeat it anyway. Sometimes, when you think of, when I think of Scorpio, right? When I think of a water sign that's ruled by Mars, that's ruled by energy, I literally think of a wave, and how, if you've been swimming, not swimming, if you've been to the ocean before, well, I shouldn't say, you may not even know this. I might be saving your life right now, but hey, if you're ever in a riptide, don't fight the riptide. Let the riptide take you in, and you're supposed to let yourself go out to ocean. You're going to go a little bit farther, but you could swim back. If you like fight the riptide, essentially, like you're going to get caught in it and you can totally drown, right? And there's something so poetic about that when it comes to the relationship of like Mars and Scorpio. If you've been watching me for a while, you've probably heard me repeat myself quite a bit when it comes to Scorpio being so much about like letting go and getting rid of things, and like part of a wave of emotion, right? You kind of just have to ride through that wave. Like that's the same thing too. Like I'm not a surfer at all, but I do love bodyboarding, boogie boarding, bodyboarding too. That shit's super fun. And with like waves, like you can't just you can kind of go through it sometimes, but you can go over it, but like sometimes you just have to kind of ride it. And I think as the moon, and this is why I'm bringing this up, because as the moon goes into Scorpio, this is like, you just want to go into the pool and you want to go swimming, but here you are in the ocean, and it's not a calm body of water, it's an intense body of water. And you want to fight it because that's what your instinct is telling you. You want to go against what your instinct is telling you because your panic response is setting in, which is very moon in Scorpio, right? Very panicky, very, freaking out. But that fighting against that and trying to push away from that is only going to get you more in trouble. It's the same thing for anyone that goes off-roading. If you get your truck stuck in mud, yeah, sure, gas it super hard. See how fast that gets you out of it. You know what I mean? You're just going to dig yourself deeper and deeper and deeper into a rut. And I'm bringing all this up because, again, it's all really similar themes. And I think this is a really, really big deal when it comes to the moon entering Scorpio, because we're about to have this new moon in Scorpio opposite Uranus, right? We're about to have Mars go opposite Uranus. We're about to have Mercury go opposite Uranus in the coming weeks. So we're going to get really familiar with the Scorpio territory. And as the moon goes into Scorpio, where there's, our emotions, right, where we want to feel comfortable and safe, we don't. It's actually going to feel kind of dramatic. It's going to feel kind of scary. The moon's going to literally enter Scorpio and then conjoin Mars in Scorpio, where like, I think the most important part here is just knowing, like, for a lot of people, this is going to be about self-control, right? Mars is in Scorpio. Sometimes it's just like, like for me, sometimes I just respond in certain ways. Like, what's a good way? Like, so this is a little personal. This is kind of funny though. I hate being tickled. I'm very ticklish, but sometimes I just have like a freaking like response of like, I can't even like control it. And there's something about Mars and Scorpio, something about Mars just in general about those responses, right? Like that kind of like, hey, for me, when I get tickled, it's like my body like kicks in like my self-defense mode or something like that, which is very Mars and Scorpio, right? And I think as the moon conjoins Mars and our emotions are really tied along with our actions, and our emotions very invested into our actions, and our emotions are in Scorpio, right? Where we're feeling kind of really intensely, and it's going to conjoin Mars, where it's going to be really easy to take action on that. I think on Wednesday, for a lot of people, when we go into Wednesday night, not taking action on something, just like chilling out for a minute, just because you're panicking, like just because, one of the, God, something that I've been really learning about more and more as I grow up too is not everyone's emergency is your emergency. And sometimes, you reacting is going to make situations worse. It's like, if you being calm, you being centered, you being in control of your emotions is much more of an asset than you reacting emotionally. And I think as the moon goes into Scorpio and conjoins Mars, God, is it going to be easy to react? It's going to be so easy to just, again, it's like kind of getting sucked in a riptide, and you're going to just like think to fight it, right? You're going to think to try to go against it. Same thing if you get your truck stuck in the mud. Your natural intuition is, well, let's hit the gas and get out of here. And it just doesn't work like that. Sometimes it could screw you up a little bit more. And as that moon conjoins Mars, I think the real question, I mean, Mars is in Scorpio now, right? We're taking like precision action. We're being very clear about what we want to do. We have the energy to do it too. And I think as the moon's conjoining Mars in Scorpio is like, just because you feel a certain way right now doesn't mean you're gonna feel that way later, but that action stays there. You know what I mean? So just be careful about what you're doing and why you're doing it. But for the other group of people, though, for the night charts mostly, really, this is gonna be about like actually doing something. Like moon's in Scorpio, right? Conjoining Mars in Scorpio. Like it's not easy. It's intimidating sometimes, but sometimes there's things that you just have to do. There's just certain emotions that you have to confront, which is what I think a lot of Wednesday night is. I think, again, Wednesday day is that Mercury trining Jupiter, and it's trining Mercury. There's all this harmony, but then the moon is going to go into Scorpio and conjoin Mars, where there's this frustration, there's this resentment, there's this anger or this pain. And at the very least, the moon in Scorpio is definitely feeling uncomfortable and not feeling the most safe. So I just think what's important about Wednesday night is just, knowing what is actually keeping you upset, right? It's kind of like in that riptide moment. You're not actually, you're not processing everything in that moment, right? You're just like fucking responding, just freaking out. But it's one of those things where like, keep calm, try to keep calm in those panic modes, and really think about what you're doing, right? Really think about what you're investing your emotions into and what you're taking action on, and on all, blah, 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 blah. And also pay attention to like what you're seeing. The sun's going to be opposite Uranus here. And this is, well, I guess that kind of leads us into Thursday. Let's just go ahead and start talking about Thursday. So Thursday, big thing with Thursday is that moon. For one, it's the new moon in Scorpio, but right before the moon conjoins the sun, we have the new moon. The moon's actually going to make a square to Saturn. So this is why this is so interesting. The moon's going to make a square to Saturn, and then it will conjoin the sun exactly, and I mean exactly opposite Uranus. That's a pretty big deal. I think as the moon squares Saturn going into Thursday morning, there's something about Thursday morning where it's, moon in Scorpio squaring Saturn in Aquarius is so... It's just one of those things. I could use some analogies that are very current to the times, but I don't want to. I just think the moon in Scorpio is feeling a certain way, and that's feeling uncomfortable, that's feeling dissatisfied. And it's squaring Saturn. Saturn in Aquarius this is the rules. This is how it is. And there's something getting in the way there. Now, I think, the Mars square Saturn is eventually, people disobeying the rules, breaking through from authorities and stuff like that. And we'll talk about that next week. But I think as the moon squares Saturn, and there's this kind of like Saturn in Aquarius authority just telling you no anyway, even though the moon in Scorpio knows that that's a no. I think on Thursday as we wake up and the moon makes that square to Saturn, there's this kind of like natural resistance, this natural urge to like go against something and to be like, no, I don't feel comfortable doing that. This is kind of stupid. For certain people, this is going to feel very like, hey, I might not feel comfortable, but I'm in the wrong and I need to like, hey, like it's moon in Scorpio is like the world doesn't, it's super funny. A lot of people are like, Leos are so self-centered, but I swear to God, the world revolves around a Scorpio and their emotions. But I think as the moon squares Saturn, there's this, again, you might need to check yourself and say like, hey, like, am I being in the way? Am I like, is it all about me right now? And then I think for the other set of people, this is kind of like, knowing where, Moon in Scorpio is like, I don't feel comfortable in it squaring Saturn. There's like, you have to set a boundary, right? And this is the new moon in Scorpio, where, I can be, I could say the corny new moon stuff of setting new intentions and the energy clearing, but I don't really think that's what this one's about. This is a new moon opposite Uranus. This is about, have you ever this I'm going to totally break into all of your guys' subconsciouses. I know you have seen this little sticker on every like city truck, but it's like, before you dig, maybe this is only in California now that I'm thinking about it. But before you dig, you're supposed to call. Oh, I'm sure I have at least a couple of subscribers that know exactly what I'm talking about. I think it's 411 or 311, but you're supposed to check for like power lines and like gas pipes underneath the ground that you're supposed to be digging up. Well, this new moon in Scorpio opposite Uranus is, you might need to call someone before you just start digging stuff, because you might unearth something you weren't expecting to unearth. This new moon in Scorpio is like, what's a good, I'm thinking of there's one analogy I'm thinking of. It's not quite materialized in my brain yet, but one that's similar to this one that's coming up is the squirrel from Ice Age. For all my Gen Z and maybe millennials that know what I'm talking about, there's a little squirrel. He just tries to bite his acorn, ends up breaking off like a whole glacier, right? This new moon in Scorpio is like when you just be careful going, like, what's super funny about Scorpio stuff, it's super going for like the gut, or I mean, my bad, going for like the throat, just really hitting that target, right? But you might hit the one spot that really unearths everything. And I want you to look at Scorpio and Taurus in your chart. What is that rule in your chart, right? This new moon in Scorpio is bringing all of your attention and your energy towards the Scorpio stuff, right? Like, we need to go deeper. We need to go, we need to look a little bit more in depth. What is it really saying, right? And if you go certain low enough, you might hit the power line. You might strike oil. You might, hit a gas line and blow the place up. That's what Thursday is. Thursday is literally like, oh my God, here's a better analogy. The moon in Scorpio squaring Saturn Aquarius is like someone being like, hey, 411, 311, is it safe to dig here? And they're like, no. And you're like, they're stupid. They don't know anything anyway. And then dig into it, and then everything kind of blows up. Now, again, for certain people, they're going to dig and they're going to hit a power line and they're going to fuck everything up. And then there's another set of people that are going to dig anyway and they're going to strike gold, right? Uranus is all about unpredictability. Uranus is all about destabilizing energy. Or for example, let's say for the people that maybe they don't hit a gas line and things blow up, but maybe you hit that power line and you don't have power for a week and it's not the end of the world, but man, is it really inconvenient, and man, does it really throw up your schedule. I think this new moon in Scorpio is like, there's going to be something that you kind of go into on a very in-depth level. Think of what Scorpio rules, right? The underneath the surface, like the literal dead. And we're going down in there and we're pulling out this Uranus stuff. So things are going to get really shooken up on Thursday. Be careful what you wish for. You might just get it. It's something I have learned as my very few years here on Earth, but mostly doing astrology with them. One thing I've learned for sure is be careful what you wish for. You might just get it. And this new moon in Scorpio opposite Uranus is a very sudden focus on the Scorpio stuff. A very sudden, a very destabilizing, look at the underneath. Or like, for example, maybe you buy a house and you're like, this house is great. And then you get like an inspector and they look at the foundation. They're like, oh, you're sitting on like a ancient burial ground or something like that. And you're like, no. Anyway, that's what really Thursday is. Moon's going to square Saturn. Some of you are going to listen to authorities, some of you don't. Hey, that's just how it goes. I think that moon squaring Saturn, though, is there's sometimes like signs are posted in like restaurants and places for a reason. And I think the moon square Saturn is like, again, for some of you, it's going to be about maybe resisting that sign, right? Because again, maybe there's something for you to break through to the other side for. But for a lot of you, it's going to be about like, hey, maybe you should listen to that sign. But anyway, that's Thursday. Thursday's new moon is honestly really, really crazy. Because again, it's just this kind of like initiatory starting of something, and we're going to kind of start something that I don't know, not that we're not ready to finish or that we couldn't, but it's one of those things where, if you start one project at the home and then it turns into all this other crazy shit that you weren't really expecting you're going to do anyway, but it's not what it led to. And it just kind of creates this chaotic environment, right? That's what Thursday looks like. So as we then go into Friday, Friday's got so much going on. We have the moon making that square to Jupiter. So we'll have the new moon in Scorpio. The moon will then still transit Scorpio, but square Jupiter. So, we'll talk about that. Venus enters Capricorn. We're not at Venus entering shadow yet, but this is, Venus entering Capricorn, here we are, next 5 months, Venus in Capricorn, Mercury enters Scorpio, and the moon enters Sagittarius, conjoining the South Node. Look, Friday is kind of a lot. The first thing to really talk about probably is really just the moon squaring Jupiter. The moon's going to be in Scorpio for a while, where we're going to still be sensitive and butthurt. It's going to square Jupiter, where we're like, no. And moon in Scorpio squaring Jupiter is like, no, I don't want to see the bright side of things. No, there is no hope. No, everything sucks. It's just going to be like that. The moon, I feel like the moon in Scorpio too, after the new moon in Scorpio, is kind of like, again, well, it's like when the moon in Scorpio is so reactive and so like panicky, it's not like responsive. It's just very like reactive. And I think as the moon's squaring Jupiter, it's like, how like something can just be really fresh, so fresh to someone that you can't joke about it yet. Like this is that moment where it's like, it's a little fresh, we can't joke about it yet. And I think the moon squaring Jupiter is like, it's going to be easy to kind of be down on things on Friday. But I think the challenge for people that want to challenge themselves, the moon's in Scorpio squaring Jupiter and Aquarius. How do you get out of your own way? How do you go, okay, there's this problem. How do we, create a solution? And how do we, bring things together, even though there isn't really a path forward? We're going to continue to talk about that in a moment once the moon goes into Sagittarius. But before we talk about that, as we start Friday morning too, Venus is going to enter Capricorn. I have a Venus retrograde in Capricorn video already made. I told, it's already up on my Patreon, so you guys will get it eventually. But anyway, the big thing I really wanted to say here is Venus is going to be in Capricorn for 5 months. That's a long, long time. And you have to think, Venus is about fun. Venus is about connection. Venus is about indulgence and, valuables and what you do value and how you value it. And Venus is in Capricorn. We're going to be wanting to value the system, value the tradition, value the way things are, value, playing by the rules. And what we're going to learn this winter is no one's been playing by. If you remember being a kid, remember being like maybe 6 or 7, maybe 8, and you played your first game of Monopoly with the grown-up kids and they fucked you over and you realize, yeah, maybe everyone does cheat at Monopoly. That's kind of what this Venus retrograde is you're kind of realizing, oh, no one else is playing by the rules, are they? But Venus is going to go into Capricorn where there's this kind of like, at least want to play by the rules. There's going to be this value of tradition, this value of like, hey, I have a system for this, right? Venus is having fun. Venus is pleasure. Venus is enjoyment. She's in Capricorn. The way that she's receiving that, the way that she's getting that pleasure is, being serious, like work, business, or like, having a plan, having organized time, fun time. But I would really just assume Venus in Capricorn is like just valuing organization, valuing the tradition, valuing a plan, valuing the system and the way that it is right now. But of course, Venus will retrograde in Capricorn. So there's going to be a whole change to the rules and the system that we play in, right? But as Venus goes into Capricorn, there is this emphasis again and this connection towards like just trying to have a system, just trying to do things by this certain textbook, the way that, within the certain, line of thinking that makes sense for me. Mercury, though, is going to enter Scorpio, where, again, Mercury's been in Libra for the past couple of months now. Mercury's going to go into Scorpio, where Mercury is doing its job, which is communication and thinking and stuff like that. And it's doing that with Mars as tool. So it's thinking, what do you think? What do you think Mars's house is like when Mars is in Scorpio? So Mars has 2 homes. It has a Aries home and then a vacation Scorpio home, right? What do you think that house is like? It's on a hill. It just so happens to be raining and dark. And, it's all this goth aesthetic and there's like knives and swords and like taxidermy, like dead animals everywhere. Mercury going into Scorpio is like thinking in those type of terms, right? Mercury going into Scorpio is communicating in those type of terms. And a lot of people, will think that like, oh, that's inherently negative, and not really. I'm super tired. And this is something that I'll never be able to change, but like, we've got to stop thinking in positive and negative binaries in astrology. It's really subjective, like truly subjective to the individual. But as Mercury kind of goes into Scorpio, if Mercury's about communication, right, and how we rationalize things and what we're thinking about, it's in Scorpio, right? So we're thinking about like super deep raw emotions. We're maybe thinking about anger. We're really kind of concentrating our thoughts too. And Mercury in Scorpio is also like kind of getting straight to the point, kind of being confrontational with, how you say things, and also kind of being a little bit sharp with your tongue. That's going to be important once Mercury actually conjoins Mars, which is going to be really funny. But this is also pretty much right when the Mercury Venus sextile begins. They'll be sextiling each other for like a day or two. But as Mercury goes into Scorpio, squares Venus, again, like look, I want you guys to really notice something here. If we were to, I'm going to make so many people mad right now and pretend as if Neptune is not in this picture. Also, Uranus and Pluto for that matter. We're going to just take those guys out. And let's just play with the 7 traditional planets for a minute. Everything's in Scorpio, Capricorn, and Aquarius. There's nothing that screams, we're having a fun, super dandy time to me. Not to say that that's not good. This is very serious. This is very deep. This is very meaningful in those ways. But this isn't necessarily fun times. This is very serious times. And I think things turn very, very serious this week as everything goes into Scorpio and Capricorn and Aquarius, right? The 2 Saturn and Mars ruled signs. So anyway, then later into Friday, the moon's going to go into Sagittarius and conjoin the South Node. I think as there's this shift to the serious stuff, Mercury's going into Scorpio, and we're seeing things all these specific ways. We're trying to Mercury in Scorpio is kind of like when you maybe watched a video and then that video's like, you weren't paying attention, but we're going to show you this scene again. And now we want you to pay attention to something that you weren't paying attention to. And then you watch it again, you're like, oh my God, I see it now. Mercury, and then once you see it, you're like, okay, now I got to look for all the other stuff. That's Mercury in Scorpio, right? Mars, I think the new moon in Scorpio is like, man, if you kind of strike gold, or let's say you buy a plot of land in, bumfuck Texas, essentially, and you get oil, well, you might kind of go, wonder if there's any other oil around here, and maybe explore other places to find the oil, right? That's kind of where I see Mercury in Scorpio being like, if you strike something, you hit something, you might go, well, what else is under there? You might get a little bit more curious about uncovering and investigating things as Mercury goes into Scorpio. And I mean, this is right after the new moon in Scorpio too, right? But I think as the moon leaves Scorpio and goes into Sagittarius, this is like, well, what's funny too is the moon going into Sagittarius is so like explorative and fun and wanting to see things. But I think as the moon goes into South Node, this is kind of like, I think what we thought might have been under there is not what we kind of thought. And I think the moon going into South Node, going into Sagittarius, conjuring the South Node is kind of like releasing expectations and kind of realizing like, oh, that wasn't the exact picture I had in my head. And, let me rethink about this, right? The moon is like how we feel, right? In Sagittarius, like we're going to feel comfortable by exploring, by running away, by avoiding things. But the moon in Sagittarius is also very idealistic and very like, hey, what makes me feel comfortable is having hope, learning, being spiritual, seeing a bigger picture. But I think the problem with that is the moon's going to conjoin the South Node, where it's just like, there's no bigger picture. I know me being a pessimist over here, I'm not saying that that's how it is, but just the moon going to South Node and Sagittarius it's just going to be one of those things where, someone be like, hey, look at the bright side. And you're going to be like, no, I don't want to look at the bright side. Which there's a time and a place for that. But I think as the moon goes into Sagittarius, this is like, sometimes you just need to run away just to get away from it all. And it's not really going to fix anything. It's not about, I just need to see the bigger picture and, have hope and everything. It's not really about that. But maybe moon going into Sagittarius, like getting out of your own way, going and doing something fun might be actually good for you anyway. So that brings us into Saturday. That's where we're going to have Mercury sextile Venus, exactly. Loving that. And the moon's going to sextile Saturn. Also loving that. Comparatively speaking, let me also say that. I'm not like, woo, Saturday. Well, but I mean, like Mercury's going to be in Scorpio. Mercury's going to be in Scorpio sextiling Venus and Capricorn, right? Venus and Capricorn is like trying to have fun through, tradition, through plans, through serious things, right? And Mercury and Scorpio, like it's kind of like, ooh, serious time. Like Mercury and Scorpio is like seeing all of this like investigative stuff and seeing all this new stuff. So Venus and Capricorn is like, ooh, we get to be serious. Ooh, are we playing serious now? Like, let's have fun. Like, this is fun. And that's kind of like what Mercury sextile Venus is like. It's sometimes fun to be serious and like sometimes fun to be like really intense. But I think as Mercury's kind of going into Scorpio, making that sextile to Venus, there's this kind of like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about, and this is how I'm connecting it to my plans, right? Mercury in Scorpio is really fixated on a certain idea, kind of revolves around an emotion, right? Mars in Scorpio. But, as it's sextiling Venus and Capricorn, Venus is like, hey, I want to have fun. I want to enjoy things. And the way that I'm going to do that right now as it transits Capricorn is through, hard work, commitment, dedication, having a plan, having a system. So I think this is kind of like getting really clear on what you might think that is at this moment, being like, hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is why I'm going to do it. This is the outcome I'm looking for. A lot of serious energy on Saturday. But I love the Mercury Venus sextile. For a lot of the Earth, like for a lot of the Scorpio placements and Capricorn placements, it's going to be really good for you guys because it's just going to get really deep, really clear, really blunt, no surfacey stuff. But the moon's also going to be making a sextile to Saturn throughout the first part of the morning and throughout the first part of the day on Saturday too. So I think as the moon's in Sagittarius sextiling Saturn, it's like, getting you. It's just so funny as a Sagittarius rising, just like, sometimes you just need to get out of a certain bubble to like gain that different perspective, right? Like there's nothing more. And like literally Deftones is my number one band of all time. And I'm sure, I don't know. That might be my first time actually saying that. Most of you should know that by now. But anyway, driving far away and just getting out of town, just go and be free, just escape. That's that moon in Sag, right? Like just shut up and drive, go and do your thing. And that's the moon's in Sagittarius. It's like if you just let yourself go and you allow yourself to get, like, for me, one of my issues is when I get like really frustrated and emotional, like really angry, I do my best to not like react because I can get like really angry and like I don't like when I'm angry. But like what I do is like I'm like, hold on, before I just fucking react and like lose my shit and then ruin the party, how about I leave, I excuse myself, and I give myself the space that I need. And that gives me this bigger perspective to look at life with, right? And to kind of go, okay, let me calm myself down. Let me talk myself off on the ledge. And I think this moon in Scorpio, this moon in Sagittarius making the sextile to Saturn is kind of like, if you just kind of give yourself, moon in conjoining the South Node in Sagittarius, it's like, you don't have to be hopeful. You don't have to be like, oh, everything's perfect and amazing, or oh, it'll all be all right. But like, just kind of look at things through a bigger picture as much as you can and give yourself some space, because I think that moon sextiling Saturn is like that different perspective might really kind of help you gain some clarity on like what is important for you right now and like what you actually should be doing. Because again, I think this new moon in Scorpio is really going to throw a lot of things off, and it's going to again change our perceptions of things. And I think as that moon's in Sag, it's like, there's going to be a minute where we have to sit with it, and then we kind of have to keep moving on. You have to keep on keeping on. And that's really Saturday. And then we get to the end of the week, we get to Sunday. The moon's going to make that sextile to Jupiter at the end degrees of Sag. Then it's going to go into Capricorn and conjoin Venus and sextile Mercury and sextile Mars. Sunday's quite a bit, actually. So, as the moon's at that last degrees of Sagittarius, sextiling Jupiter first thing in the morning, this is when I think Sunday morning you're going to go, okay, there's a bigger picture. How can I see things in a much more positive sense, right? Especially Sunday morning. But then as we get into Sunday night, and again, you're probably watching this video at this point, the moon's going to go into Capricorn and conjoin Venus, and then sextile Mercury and Mars as we go into Sunday night, Monday morning. And there's all like, as the moon goes into Capricorn and conjoins Venus, is like, okay, you saw the bigger picture. You got, it's like new moon in Scorpio, big shakeup, get your mind off of it for a few days, and then game time. Moon's conjoining Venus. It's going to sextile Mercury and Mars. This is like executing plans. This is taking care of plans. This is kind of like, really executing plans, right? You've lined up all your dominoes. Now it's time to, knock them over essentially. Or maybe this is about lining up your dominoes and stacking up your dominoes. But I think Sunday is really about, like bringing things together. The moon's conjoining Venus and Capricorn, bringing a plan together, bringing a system together. And it's sextiling Mercury and Mars. There's this specific emotion. There's this specific thing that you're driven to do. And I think by Sunday night, you're really like, yep, this is what we're doing. This is the plan. And this is how I'm going about it. That's this week for you guys. I want to talk about next week, because next week, my thumbnail for next week is going to be so funny. I've already thought about this thumbnail like 2 weeks in advance, so I really hope it gets a lot of clicks because it's going to be a really funny thumbnail. I'm having a blast making thumbnails, by the way. But anyway, next week, Mercury is going to conjoin Mars, and Mercury is going to conjoin Saturn, and Mars is going to square Saturn, and then Mercury is going to go opposite Uranus. like I've been saying all year long, November 10th, next week is probably the worst week of the year. Um, Next week has so many bad things about it that it's going to be hard for me to like have a positive message. But the one thing that I will really say is, this is why and I've kind of like a broken record, and there's a reason why. It's because I want you guys to fucking know this stuff. But like I said, September, October, that Mercury retrograde, that was all the fun time. This week gets really serious really, really fast during that new moon in Scorpio. And that's not always a bad thing. Some seriousness is a good thing. Anyway, however, next week, when we have the Mercury Mars conjunction squaring Saturn, for a lot of people, that's going to be hitting huge roadblocks and hitting huge walls that, are going to suck. And Mars squaring Saturn is going to be about breaking through those. And well, that's the problem with Mars and Scorpio. This is like, and this is the one thing I wanted to say too. And I'm going to talk about this more with Mars square Saturn. Like Mars is in Scorpio, right? Mars in Libra is maybe not a time to fight. Mars in Scorpio is a time to be like, nah. Mars is also in the superior position, squaring Saturn here, where there is this kind of sense of like literally disobeying authority or going against authority, going against grain, pushing against the wall. And, what sucks about the Mercury Mars square or Mercury Mars conjunction squaring Saturn is for a lot of people, like for me, I have like some sketchy neighbors, and because I had a package stolen. Anyway, I think they're going to fuck me over because this is like in my 12th and my third house. So I might get fucked over like that, right? But then also Mars in Scorpio, right? What I'm doing, what I want to do, squaring Saturn, I'm probably going to hit a wall. I'm probably going to hit, a barrier. And for a lot of people, it's going to be about breaking through that wall that stops them. So I don't want people to think, oh, it's going to be bad because it's bad astrology. It's like, well, yeah, it's a bad transit. Breakthrough moments aren't necessarily like fun. You know what I mean? Like, addressing a really deep rooted issue is not fun, but it's needed and you kind of have to do it. And it's hard, but like, that's what life's kind of about. So anyway, and I know I've talked a lot about next week being really bad, and don't get me wrong. It's not about it's not roses and daisies. It's not supposed to be, but it's what I will say though, is that next week, this week too, shit's just serious now. It has been serious, but if you think it's been serious now, you just wait until Mercury and Mars are both in Scorpio making that square to Saturn. But anyway, that's next week for you guys. Anyway, if you like this video, please give me a like. Show me that you like this video. I'd love to know that you like this video. Thank you guys so much for being here, liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing. I truly, truly, truly love and appreciate every single one of you guys, and I'll be seeing you next week.